Hi and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing a terrarium build using my Ginseng ficus along with some other plants and some dragon rock. Previous video you will have seen me using the ficus for propagation, and I'd mentioned that I had to take some cuttings because it was getting too big and I hadn't got round to doing the terrarium. So let's get building. First I added a false bottom. I used Rake for this. It provides a safety net which can store water away from the planting medium in the event of accidental overwatering. I then added a thin layer of horticultural grit to help prevent the soil medium falling through. You can use fine mesh for this, and I will show you on a future terrarium build. Next we place the soil over the false bottom. Here I'm using soilninja's terrarium blend. This includes cocoa, bark, sand, worm castings, zeolite and activated charcoal. This mixture provides fast draining properties tied with even moisture spread through the mix. A high amount of activated charcoal and zeolite stops heavy metals, impurities, minerals and other nasties from the terrarium. I like to create a slight slurp that increases the sense of depth. Now to start preparing the ficus for putting it inside the terrarium. Removing it from the pot gives you the opportunity to look at the roots and inspect it closely. Now gently remove all the soil that surround the roots so the ficus will get the full benefits of being in its new medium. Here I added a piece of the dragon rock. What I wanted to try and do is look like the roots had grown over the rock naturally. I found it useful to spray the soil, as this will help when you actually come to put the plants in. Ficuses are tropical plants that enjoy high humidity and are easy to care for and will grow well in a terrarium. So as long as it's in a good quality substrate and has adequate airflow. Regular pruning is necessary to retain the tree's shape. Leaf pruning, defoliation can be used to reduce leaf size, as some ficus bonsai species normally grow large leaves. I'm now going to put this fern in. I've used it in quite a few terrariums and it's done really well. I'm now just following the same process as I did with the ficus and removing the soil from the roots. I'm now going to add the Fraterna. It's also known as the nerve plants. It comes in so many different colours and it's so easy to have in a terrarium. Just from that little cutting and pushed into the soil medium, the roots will soon develop and it'll thrive. This is another Fraterna that I wanted to add just because of the difference in the colour. The mother plant I've had for quite a while and I've taken quite a few cuttings, so I won't be taking any more cuttings now and I'll just let it regrow. Here I'm using flat moss. I bought it as a sheet. You don't need to have moss in a closed terrarium. It's completely up to you and how you want your terrarium to look. This is sustainably sourced forest moss. It's a great way to get started with a terrarium and it's easy to use. I think it looks really good and I do use it in all my terrariums. There are so many different varieties to choose from. It can generally be assumed all mosses need to be kept moist, not wet or dry, and away from direct sunlight, otherwise they will burn. terrariums have become very popular in the past few years, and for good reason. Moss is wonderful in a terrarium, either as a centerpiece or as an accent for other types of plant. But another beautiful thing about moss is that you don't have to buy it. You can go outside and harvest some. But if you do this, please only take what you need for that terrarium. Moss doesn't have a root system, it anchors itself to the ground using rhizoids. In a closed terrarium, the humidity is much higher than in an open space. Mold can grow in a closed terrarium just as effectively as it does in nature. Molds are actually only partly preventable. One of the proactive measures you can take against molds is to add activated charcoal. Terrariums love bright and direct sunlight. Place near a bright window but not in beams of the sun. A north-facing window is great. Aim for 4 to 6 hours of indirect sunshine a day. Plants inside the closed terrariums are able to photosynthesize, which means they can produce their own food using the light that enters the container. The plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which creates a self-sustaining environment inside the terrarium. The placement of your terrarium is vital. Most terrariums thrive in indirect sunlight, especially if they contain tropical plants. Direct sunlight can be too intense, causing the plant to burn. Think of your terrarium like a vampire. Then I decided on the position of the hardscaping. You can play around with the positioning until you find a layout that appeals to you. You are the creator. Don't be afraid to move things if you don't like the look of where they are. I found this little turntable perfect while doing the terrarium. There are many things out there that you can use for your landscaping. Previously I've used cork, bark, pebbles, different types of stones. Don't be afraid to try new things. You can also decide whether you want to put your hardscaping before the plants or your moss. I have done it both ways. It's entirely up to you. Plant that I'm going to add now I really love. It's called peacock moss. It does really well in a terrarium, but it does take a little bit of time to get going, so don't give up on it. Peacock moss will spread slowly across whichever rock, wood or substrate chosen, where it will grab hold of virtually any porous surface by means of root-like appendages known as rhizoids, the same as the moss I previously mentioned. Now for the final plant that I'm popping in the terrarium. This one's called the oak leaf creeping fig. I find this one to be a slow growing one as well, but that's really what you need for a terrarium. Most of the vines are covered in tiny aerial roots. You will find it will cling to any surface. After watering, the soil in your terrarium should be moist to the touch but not soggy. The benefits of having a glass container is you can always keep an eye on the soil. If your plants sit in too much water, they will get a fungal infection known as root rot. Overwatered soil cuts off oxygen to the root system, causing the roots to become brown and mushy, dying away until the plant wilts. Like I've said previously, terrariums need indirect light to be able to thrive, and one of the best ways is from the top. So being able to find a terrarium that's got a suitable lid could be a challenge. The container that I'm using here didn't actually have a lid. I love the shape of it, so I tried to find something that would be suitable. And I came across these, which I purchased from Amazon. They're actually used for cake displays. So after a quick cleanup, that's the terrarium completed. I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. If you have, please like and subscribe. Then YouTube will let you know when I next upload a video. See you soon!